Conflict in the team. Wouldn't you like to have 3 ways to be? Of course you do. And you also want to have the preventative measure so that conflict isn't what you're dealing with. In this series, we're going to examine how to be reflective and why that's important, how to be curious to collect other points of view, and why that is the way you will be successful. And last, to be open and transparent with the team directly in order to restore engagement. All of this, and a bonus at the end, how to prevent conflict in the first place. Be reflective. I promised I'd tell you why. Of course, conflict is uncomfortable for you as the leader and for everybody on the team. Here's the important point to remember. It didn't just happen. When I say be reflective, I'm inviting you to pull your chair back a couple of inches from the desk. Stop looking at the status report that says the project is on red. I know you want it back to green plan. But here's the problem. You don't actually know what it is that's stimulating the conflict. If you go down memory lane with a little perspective, you're going to go back a month, maybe as much as 6 months, and you're going to recognize a moment when you could feel a little bit of tension starting to build. Now scan the organization for a moment. What was it that caused that tension to emerge? Maybe a policy got changed. Maybe the goalpost for success on that project changed. Maybe a new stakeholder came into the picture and their demands didn't match up with the original scope of work that this team is attempting to fulfill. Maybe you had a change in the composition of the team and you have some personalities on the team that haven't quite made it past the storming stage into norming. Whatever it is, your moment of reflection is going to help you to identify the source that has now become full-blown conflict. Stay with your reflection a little bit longer and see if you can trace the series of moments that you perhaps ignored, definitely not on purpose, but we're all busy. And sometimes we say, they'll get through it. That's having faith in your team for sure. And yet, if you're now at all-out mutiny, and that's your definition of conflict, then there were moments when it was important for you to step in. And having not done so, you're going to need the next 2 steps of this in order to right the ship and bring them back into synergy and harmony. Being curious to collect perspectives. Yes, step 2. This one's a little bit non-ego enhancing, perhaps. I know as leaders, we think we know what's going on in our organizations and that we have our finger on the pulse all the time. But the more complex and uncertain our environments become, the further and further away we are from knowing what's really going on. We have our guesses, we have our hunches. It's important that you allow yourself some time to go collect perspective and points of view from others who have been observing like you, not only the moment now of mutiny and conflict on your team, but that reflection exercise you did. You went back a month, 2 months, 6 months, and you began to see what some of the influences were that produced tension in that team. Identify those people who are observing like you. Identify the people that were being impacted by the work of this team. So customers internally, customers externally, stakeholders, maybe contractors, vendors they've been working with. Everybody has a piece of the picture. You get to go collect that information and see the whole story beyond the edges of your own bias and your preference to have it be a certain way. Particularly if your preference is, this will blow over. Because it didn't blow over. And it's now something that requires your time and energy, probably at the moment when you least have the time and energy for it. Of course, that means you want to be able to give it back to the team. And being able to tell the narrative is your best way to help them recognize you see them, you hear them, and you understand. You have empathy and and a certain level of compassion for where they are in this moment. And you know that there was something earlier that got stepped over. And so now's the time to acknowledge that and move on. And we'll talk about that in step 3. So before I get to step 3, be sure that you press the button down below to subscribe to this channel. If you've liked what you've heard so far, you're going to enjoy many more segments that we do for leaders and the teams that they support and create the environment for them to thrive inside of your organization. So step 3, be open and transparent. I know with the leaders and teams that I support, this one often has them shudder a little bit. It feels scary somehow to tell the truth about what's uncomfortable. And of course, conflict's always uncomfortable. It's a little less uncomfortable if we're working from the moment we first feel the tension and we are open and transparent to have the conversation. But unfortunately, that ship has sailed. We're at the moment of mutiny. Your team is starting to disband and the project is at great risk. So what do? You've reflected. You've found the moments when tension was arising. You've collected points of view. You now have the full narrative. Now it's time to be with the team, to bring them together to say, I see you and I understand what you've been going through and I accept responsibility. Then I missed the importance of X change, Y influence, Z impact, whatever it is that you've learned from the narrative. Give them a short version of what you now understand. And this is the key to success with this step. Ask them, what was your experience when X happened, Y happened, and Z happened? What was the influence on this team's productivity when those things occurred? In hindsight now, what would you have asked for if I'd been more available to hear the request from you? This conversation, team, is an opportunity for me to learn from you and for you to know you have my commitment that I'll do that going forward. This is what it means to model being open and transparent. Now, it has an additional benefit, which is you are creating ownership and autonomy because you're signaling your respect for your team's competence by including them in the resolution process for the conflict. Won't be easy going forward. They have a lot of things that they have to unwind and rework and bring themselves back together relationally because, of course, you pick the right talent for the team. But the dynamics and the opaqueness of the tension is what's got them off track. To get them back on track, they must come back together again. All right, so I promised you a bonus, and I told you it would be preventative to conflict. You've now got the 3 steps. Be reflective, be curious to collect perspective, and be open and transparent with the team. And I mentioned that it was important for them to restore their interpersonal relationships and the big word we all talk about, which is trust. Unfortunately, because we all talk about it, we think we have the same definition of trust. It's rarely the case. Way back when, maybe as much as 30 or 40 years ago, somebody introduced a facilitation technique called ground rules. You've maybe been part of producing ground rules that happened at the beginning of the first time a team ever came together and never got looked at ever again. That's sort of like saying, you can count on me, but you never show up for a meeting. It doesn't work so well. I want to introduce you to the concept of teaming agreements. Yes, active, ongoing teaming processes. What are we talking about? Behaviors, commitments to show up and interact and make decisions in ways that we know optimize the individual strengths and what we've come together in a shared purpose to accomplish. Your part in teaming agreements as the leader is being sure you are clear about what the team is expected to deliver. And back to step 3 about being open and transparent with the team. Remember, we asked you to ask some questions. Ask the team to tell you first what they think they're there and are expected to deliver. You will learn so very much about the clarity of your communication And you'll have an opportunity in that moment to refine what you have said to them so that everybody is on the same page. Now, clear about what they're expected to deliver, the next question is, how do we want to be with each other in our ongoing work? When we're live doing something, when we're out distributed doing something, what is the set of behaviors that honors and respects each of us for our unique skills and contribution to this project? Here's an example. I often see one that shows up that says, assume good intent. We all know the problem with the word assume. It's in the eye of the beholder, and it often backfires. So a question follow-up as a leader would be to say, how would I know if we're in a conversation that you are assuming good intent? And you'll start to hear some popcorn answers. Someone acknowledges what's just been said, even if they disagree with it. And somebody else might say, I have a question that I don't quite understand what you're describing here. Can you give me an example? Engagement. They'll go on through this conversation and you'll start to see usually 8 or 10 behaviors will make the list. And if you want to know how to make those stick and keep them dynamic, the obvious thing is that they're visible and present all the time. But we have another video that takes you through some of those steps about how to construct that conversation and have it be the living, breathing, teaming agreement process that supports that team to high performance. And you can find that right here